to completely dominate the woman's body. The man tied her up tightly and suspended her from the ceiling beams. The woman cried out helplessly, but her desperate sobs failed to stir even an ounce of conscience in him. Strangely, Ariel did not assault her immediately. Instead, he left her alone in the room. The woman looked around in utter despair. Through the window, she could even see her family outside frantically searching for her. She screamed for help with everything she had, but her faint cries went unheard. Even more terrifying, the kidnapping was only the beginning. Ariel's subsequent acts of cruelty were far worse than mere imprisonment. For a full day and night, suspended in midair, the woman had no food, no water. She could only relieve herself while hanging there. The humiliation and fear of the unknown almost shattered her will completely, and that was exactly Ariel's intention, to break her spirit so she would gradually lose the ability to resist. After 2 long days, Ariel finally came to see her. He placed her on the floor, which was covered in filth and waste, then forced her to eat a hamburger. He had not finished playing, and had no intention of letting her die so easily. By this point, the woman was already paralyzed with fear, and had no appetite left. All she could do was plead for Ariel to let her go. What she didn't know was that Ariel had been planning this kidnapping for a long time. Soon, he dragged her down to the basement, and that was when the real nightmare truly began. This film was based on a real-life kidnapping case. The man had abducted multiple girls, locking them away in his home. Every shocking scene in the story was based on the victim's real suffering. Even after more than a decade, the survivors still cannot forget the inhuman torment. The story begins. The protagonist, Michelle, was a single mother to fight for custody of her son. She had to attend court every Sunday without fail. Normally, her mother would drive her there, but this time, her mother never showed up. With no other choice, Michelle had to walk to the courthouse alone. On her way, she met Ariel, her best friend's father. Seeing that Michelle was in a hurry, Ariel offered to give her a ride. At first, Michelle was cautious, but because he was her best friend's father, she accepted. What she didn't know was that monsters often wear the mask of someone you trust most. After learning Michelle was fighting for custody, Ariel casually said that all children loved pets. He mentioned he had a few puppies at home, and bringing one along would surely make her son happy. Michelle's mind was consumed by her custody battle, so she failed to notice the trap. In this way, Michelle was easily lured to Ariel's house, but the moment she stepped inside, Ariel quickly locked the door behind her. Michelle sensed something was wrong and tried to open a window to call for help, but it was already too late.
Why?
Chill up. To prevent her escape, Ariel chained her in the basement. Not only that, he forced a thick helmet onto her head to prevent her cries from alerting the neighbors. But what truly broke Michelle was not the inhuman abuse itself. It was her family's cold indifference and the police's casual, dismissive attitude. Though her mother reported her missing, the police assumed Michelle had run away to avoid the responsibility of raising her child. What hurt even more was that her mother didn't dispute it. The police filed a brief report and never pursued the matter further. Ariel, knowing this, deliberately told Michelle he knew this was her weakness. Everyone believed Michelle had abandoned her child willingly. He used this to torment her mentally, making her feel like a terrible mother who had forsaken her son. He even told Michelle that he could do anything he wanted to her, and no one would ever find out. But Ariel didn't let his guard down. From time to time, he moved Michelle to a different room. Not only that, he sealed every window, leaving her no chance of escape. For a long period, Michelle obeyed him completely. Finally, one weekend, she was presented with her first opportunity to escape. Emily, Ariel's daughter, had brought several classmates over for dinner. Since Ariel's divorce, his daughter rarely came home. That day, she wanted to go upstairs to retrieve some childhood photos. Seeing this, Ariel rushed to stop her, frantically claiming he had already thrown away the old belongings. Emily didn't think much of it, but upstairs, Michelle, imprisoned, had already heard the voices below. She shook her body desperately, and the loud noises carried downstairs. Ariel lied, saying the noise came from a dog locked upstairs. As silence returned downstairs, Michelle collapsed in despair. She knew all too well that every act of defiance would be met with brutal punishment. The next day, Ariel brought her a puppy. It was the same trick he had used to lure Michelle in. She held the puppy tightly, unwilling to let go, but she didn't know this was just another way Ariel controlled her. Soon after, Ariel said he would be away from the house for a while. At the same time, Michelle noticed something unusual. For the first time, Ariel had left the chains unlocked. It was the perfect opportunity to escape. Cradling the puppy, Michelle carefully made her way downstairs, but just as she held her breath and reached the door, Ariel appeared again. It was a meticulously designed test to punish her disobedience. He strangled the puppy in front of her. He wanted to control Michelle's mind and show her that escaping would come at a devastating cost. That same night, Michelle heard a girl screaming. Ariel had abducted another victim. Through conversation, Michelle learned the girl's name was Gina. Gina was also one of Ariel's daughter's close friends, but Ariel treated Gina differently. He even affectionately called her his wife. Yet behind this special treatment was the same abuse and psychological control. Looking at the younger Gina, Michelle felt an overwhelming urge to protect her. She quietly warned the girl never to resist. "We have to stay alive," she whispered. "Only if we survive will we have a chance to escape." But before she could finish, Michelle suddenly vomited violently. She realized something horrifying. She was pregnant with Ariel's child. Michelle fell into a terrible dilemma. She didn't know whether to keep the baby or not, but what she didn't realize was that she had no right to make that decision. That night, Ariel noticed her belly had swollen considerably. In his eyes, Michelle was nothing more than a tool for his desires. He refused to let the child live. He grabbed a 10-kilogram dumbbell and slammed it violently onto Michelle's stomach. The pain wasn't just physical, it shattered her mentally as well. She began doubting herself, even believing that encouraging Gina to survive had been wrong. Eventually, Michelle decided to stop resisting entirely. She even considered taking her own life. She sliced her arm with broken glass, ready to end everything, but in a fleeting moment of clarity, her son's smiling face flashed in her mind. Her child was the only reason to keep going. The thought of her son losing his mother forced Michelle to stop herself from giving up. Not long afterward, Michelle was finally given a second chance to escape. Because Ariel had become more obsessed with Gina, Gina was now the one forced to stay by his side every night. Michelle was no longer treated as an object for his desires. Instead, she was used like a servant around the house. Ariel made Michelle wear a wig and dark sunglasses. Before ordering her to help cut wooden boards outside in the yard, Michelle carefully looked around. Finally, she spotted an elderly man stepping out from the neighboring house. Too afraid to shout, she could only mouth the words "help me" toward him silently. That very night, the sound of countless police sirens echoed from downstairs. Michelle was overwhelmed with excitement, thinking the police had finally found them, but what she never expected was that two drunk men nearby had simply gotten into a fight. The old man had never called the police at all. The next day, Ariel suddenly told Michelle he had a gift for her, and that gift was another kidnapped girl. Her name was Amanda, just like the others. She had been deceived and lured there because she was connected to Ariel's daughter. What made it even more horrifying was that Ariel actually attended prayer gatherings for the missing girls. He delivered emotional speeches in front of everyone, even deliberately hugging Amanda's mother, while presenting himself as a harmless and caring man. But after returning home, he immediately played the footage for the girls to watch. He even told Amanda how heartbroken her mother looked while crying. The moment Amanda saw the video, she completely broke down emotionally. Fortunately, Michelle already understood Ariel's manipulative tactics, so she comforted Amanda, telling her not to give up hope. The following day, Ariel deliberately removed the chains from both Amanda and Michelle. He even claimed that from now on, he would no longer lock them up. Amanda could hardly believe it. She thought she finally had a chance to escape, but Michelle had already grown used to Ariel's cruel games. She warned Amanda not to fall for it, or the only thing waiting for her would be a brutal beating. Still, one question continued haunting them. Why had Gina, the second kidnapped girl, not appeared for such a long time? Soon enough, they got their answer. Ariel gathered all three women together and announced something shocking. Gina was pregnant. Because Ariel favored Gina and considered her obedient, he decided to let her keep the baby. Before long, 10 months passed, and the day finally came for Gina to give birth. But there were no doctors, no medicine, no anesthesia, only two terrified women trapped in the same nightmare, trembling as they helped deliver the child. When the baby's cries finally shattered the silence, all three women burst into tears at the same time. For the first time in years, a tiny ray of light appeared inside their living hell. Day by day, the baby slowly grew up, and the child became the emotional anchor that kept all three women alive. Michelle poured all the love and longing she felt for her own son into caring for the little girl. She taught the child how to speak, how to walk. Using every last bit of warmth, she still had to protect her. Meanwhile, Gina became far more patient and resilient because of her daughter. She knew she no longer had to survive only for herself. She had to escape with her child as well. As time passed, the little girl gradually grew older. She didn't understand why they were never allowed outside, nor could she understand why her father constantly abused her mother and the two women she called aunts. But ironically, it was this innocent child who eventually became the key to breaking the prison apart. Ariel adored the little girl deeply because in his eyes, the three women were nothing more than kidnapped pets. Even though they had become obedient, their obedience had been forced through years of abuse. But the child was different. From the very first day she was born, Ariel believed she belonged entirely to him. For a man obsessed with control, she was the only thing that made him lower his guard. One day after returning home, Ariel actually forgot to lock the door. Gina immediately noticed it. Without hesitation, she began screaming for help toward the outside. Several neighbors heard the cries and rushed over immediately. Together, they forced open the door.
Is anybody here? Come on out. It's okay.
You're the police. Police. You saved us. Thank you.
And with that, the 11-year nightmare of imprisonment finally came to an end. On July 26, 2013, the monster Ariel was officially arrested by police. The court charged him with 937 crimes, including kidnapping, assault, and forced abortions. In August of the same year, he was sentenced to 1,000 years in prison without any possibility of parole. At last, the monster received the punishment he deserved, but the suffering endured by the victims could never truly be erased. The 2015 film Cleveland Abduction does not rely heavily on graphic violence or gore. Instead, it focuses on the psychological transformation of the three women as they struggled to survive in absolute despair. Michelle evolved from someone consumed by hopelessness and suicidal thoughts into the emotional pillar supporting the other victims. Her transformation revealed the incredible resilience of human nature. Meanwhile, Gina changed from an innocent young girl into a mother willing to endure unimaginable suffering for her child. And what makes this film truly devastating is the fact that it was inspired by real events. As we watch the suffering these women endure on screen, we realize this is not merely fictional horror. It reflects a tragedy that truly happened. The story reminds us that monsters may exist far closer than we imagine. Even ordinary neighbors or trusted friends may hide terrifying darkness behind their normal appearance. That is why we must remain alert and never let down our guard.